It's Friday, November 15th, and it is time to break down the big issues facing our nation. Welcome to The Breakdown, KUJH's political news and analysis program. I'm Eric Pauls. Caitlin is out this week. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or the UN Disabilities Treaty, is returning for a vote in the Senate after a controversial failure in the Senate 11 months ago. We'll break down that upcoming issue later on in the program. The Breakdown also had the opportunity to sit down with Nancy Dwight, political practitioner and former chairwoman of the National Republican Congressional Committee during the Reagan administration. We will hear her thoughts on political gridlock, our generation's responsibility in the political scheme, and changes in political campaigns. But first, let's catch up on the latest political headlines. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich and his wife Callisto were in Overland Park last week to endorse Senator Pat Roberts as his campaign fires up against primary challenger Milton Wolfe of Johnson County. Roberts and Gingrich made no mention of Wolfe during their speeches, but instead focused on Obamacare and Roberts' endorsers who were there, who included everyone from Kansas Rifle Association President Patricia Stoneking, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Collier, Kansans for Life Executive Director Mary Kay Culp, and more conservative leaders around the state. I caught up with Culp after the event.
You know, Kansas for Life hasn't endorsed yet because we don't endorse this early. But on a personal level, I love Pat Roberts. He has a 100% pro-life voting record as scored by our national affiliate, the National Right to Life Committee. 32 years worth of pro-life votes. You just don't turn your back on 32 years worth of pro-life votes.
I also spoke with Senator Roberts and asked him if the fact that he is a primary challenger questioning his conservatism caused him to vote against raising the debt ceiling, something that he has done 11 times previously.
You know, on the other votes on raising the debt ceiling, we always had an agreement that we had reform along with it. We have spending cuts and other things. This last one, no deal. And I mean, we tried every way possible. The last deal that was offered by the House was a deal that now all the 14 Democrats want that are up for re-election. And that's a delay in Obamacare for a year. So, I mean, we were trying to get some relief from this bill, and we thought that was paramount at the time. I don't think anybody wanted to see us go off the edge with regards to the debt ceiling.
Now, what all of this means for you, Roberts obviously realizes that this could be a tough primary challenge. He's been willing to pull out all the stops with endorsements and messaging. And as we have said before on The Breakdown, whoever wins this primary has a great chance to become the next senator for the state of Kansas, so it is certainly an important primary challenge. On to other news, the president publicly apologized this week for the technical and legal confusions and shortcomings of the Obamacare rollout. Less than 2% of people that were expected to sign up have been able to sign up so far. Now, there is also an issue with the president's promise of one being able to keep an insurance plan if one so chooses. Recent reports have shown that in states like California alone, more than 1 million people will lose their insurance. And the president did go on network television to apologize this week, and here is the video from CNN.
I regret very much that what we intended to do, which is to make sure that everybody is moving into better plans because they want them as opposed to because they're forced into it, that we weren't as clear as we needed to be in terms of the changes that were taking place. And I want to do everything we can to make sure that people are finding themselves in a good position, a better position than they were before this law happened. And I am sorry that they are finding themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me. We've got to work hard to make sure that they know we hear them and that we're going to do everything we can to deal with folks who find themselves in a tough position as a consequence of this.
Now, what this means for you. How this is handled will have a significant impact on the future of the law and the legacy of the president. Now, if things get repaired and run smoothly from here on out, both the law and the president should leave with a reputation that is good and the future intact. However, if things do not go well for the law and people do lose their insurance, after having been on camera nearly 40 times saying that Americans can keep their insurance, that would probably leave a dark mark on the legacy of the president. Now, this week, Janet Yellen began the confirmation process to become the next chair of the Federal Reserve. President Barack Obama nominated Yellen for the position last month. During confirmation hearings yesterday, Yellen said that the Federal Reserve has taken significant steps to prevent another economic crisis. Yellen is crediting with predicting the housing bust before the market collapsed in 2008. Now, what this means for you. If Yellen is confirmed, she will be the first female to hold this position. A committee vote on her nomination could happen as early as next week. The chairman of the Federal Reserve is the person that is the head of the central banking system of the United States. Now, moving on to today's big breakdown issue, the UN Disability Treaty. The United Nations Disability Treaty, or the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, was drafted in 2006 and signed in 2007 first under the Bush administration. The goal of the treaty is to protect the rights of people with disabilities across the world. The United States has a law similar to what this treaty would call for in other countries, and that law is called the Americans with Disabilities Act. A signature on this from the United States means that our country would work with the UN to make sure other countries are treating their disabled fairly. For this bipartisan convention to be ratified, it must receive a 2/3 majority vote in the Senate. Now, last December, the treaty failed on a 61-38 vote. And that dramatic vote made headlines because of a rally made from conservatives speaking against the law, including former Senator Rick Santorum, and other conservatives speaking strongly in favor of it, including former Senate Majority Leader and disabled veteran Senator Bob Dole. Senator Dole's wife, former Senator Elizabeth Dole, actually helped to wheel Senator Dole down to the Senate floor to watch his former Republican colleagues, some close friends, walk by him and vote against something he worked his whole life to achieve. Critics of the law, such as Santorum, question the need of the U.S. to sign it if our laws are so good. He said that we would just be handing over power of our own country to the United Nations, and that there would be added restrictions on things like homeschooling or liberalization of abortion policy through the language of this law. The bill is now being put back through the Senate, and it has garnered support from Republicans such as Senator John McCain of Arizona and Kelly Ayotte of New Hampshire. Rick Santorum is still leading that charge against this treaty, along with Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma and others. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Breakdown. I had the honor to sit down with my friend Nancy Dwight at the Dole Institute of Politics 10th Anniversary Fellows Reunion last month. Here's what Nancy had to say regarding some of the issues going on in the political world and what those solutions could be. I'm Eric Pauls here at the Dole Institute of Politics for the 10th anniversary of the Dole Fellows Program. And I'm honored to be here with Nancy Dwight, the former chairwoman of the National Republican Congressional Committee and so many other things. Thanks for joining me. People out
My
in the
pleasure
hallway
to be back in
gawking
Florence, Kansas.
Tell me a little bit about your career and what positions that you've played on the political field, and I know that's quite a list.
Well, I'm not sure you want to hear all of it, but I will start with, appropriate to a college radio or college television broadcast, is my activity began when I was in college in the East at Wheaton College. And it was the height of the Vietnam War period, the height of the Civil Rights period, back in the late 60s, and I determined then that I wanted to be part of the political world. And so very much like anybody today would do, did everything I could possibly do to find a position in a political campaign. And as I remember, I think finally I earned $50 a month, as I remember, as payroll.
Wow.
So things have changed a wee bit. Now, it's still, the scale is different. Anyway, so that was the start. That was in Massachusetts, which is where I'm from. And from there, I served for that campaign one. It was for the governor. I went into that staff after college for 4 years. Then I ran and won I was vice chair of the Republican State Committee in Massachusetts. Then after that, I managed a congressional race in Massachusetts, a Republican who almost won, which was surprising to all of us. And from that, I went to Washington to work with the National Republican Congressional Committee, which at that point was a small, not unknown, but very insider group. This was after the Watergate period, and it was the time of rebuilding the Republican Party. And so I was fortunate enough to join a band of others to do that.
And I know that you last year put on a program essentially about this, but what has this experience given you perspective-wise as you look at campaigns and as you look at just any political decision that's being made?
Well, you know, it's so interesting now because this whole world of campaign politics has changed so much because there's so much money involved in it, there's so many communications that are ongoing and everything, and modern and new, and I am for that. I am for all of that. I think it's terrific. But nothing replaces just that common sense, getting to know you conversation with voters and also with your opposition's voters. And so one of the things we've always strive to do in Massachusetts is to always keep a dialogue going between Republicans, Democrats, and whatever else. I mean, right now I'm working for a candidate for the mayor of Boston who's a Democrat. Now, it's not a partisan race, so it's not like I'm not being a Republican,
Right.
but it's just the way politics, I think, should be conducted. You know, looking for the best candidate, looking for the voters.
And that has disappeared so much. And is there a certain faction or a certain movement that is to blame for that?
Not one. We're all to blame in a certain way. Those of us, or those, I'm not, hopefully not one of these, but those people who only want to talk to people who they agree with, those people who only want to live with people they agree with, they only want to go to school with people they agree with, and they only want to emerge as adults with people they agree with. That's not healthy in my view. And so there are a lot of reasons why all of this has taken place, but I think your generation is going to, the challenge will be to blast open the political world at this point and get it back into a world where people are talking together, playing together, and respecting each other.
Why do college students, and so many don't, why do college students need to pay attention and be involved in the political decisions that are being made around them?
Because you are inheriting this nation of ours, and this nation needs you. And I cannot say that more seriously. Back when my generation inherited a nation, it was to try to make some sense out of foreign policy because of the Vietnam War. And also we were still trying to implement civil rights. The Voting Rights Act had been passed 5 years before I graduated from college. I mean, it was a very different world. That's not your world. You now have a very broken national system.
Right.
You have an economy that is too dependent on a monetary policy that can't continue forever, and that's very much based on government. You have a tax system that is absolutely in need of repair so that we can attack this debt in a real way and increase productivity to be able to do that. So there are lots of things. And so I always say this to young people, if you don't get involved, then who does? And what happens because of it? So I say to everybody, my pitch for next year is everybody vote in a primary. Everybody vote in a primary, because everybody often complains to me, well, the candidates that I'm offered up, you know, whether it's Republican or Democrat, they don't mean anything to me. And I say, fine, go do something about that.
Thanks to Nancy Dwight for sitting down with us, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to The Breakdown. So often on this program, we talk about deep and serious political issues. We rarely have a lighthearted political moment. So here is a funny scene from Speaker Gingrich's endorsement of Senator Pat Roberts last Friday in Johnson County that we thought would be a nice note to end on.
Roberts became sort of our ambassador to Senator Dole. And I have to say, for a minute or two there as I listened to you, I thought some of Dole's style had rubbed off. Both of these guys have this laconic humor that is apparently very good in Kansas. But I gotta tell you, for some guy who writes books and hangs out with big speeches, there are moments I just stare at Roberts and I figure, what are you doing? And then you watch the people around him and they all start laughing. And the tension disappears. And you can get back to business and roll up your sleeves. Puss and I are very, very proud to think of Frankie and Pat as good friends, as people we can let our hair down with, as people we've known for a very, very long time. I think that I've always had an insensitivity to people who are follically challenged. Do you see what I mean? First of all, if you end up on the wrong side and you're in a real argument, you're really angry, how do you stay mad at that? I mean, it is just routine. It's just unending. It's remarkable. He's a great human being.
And that's all for this week. We appreciate you joining The Breakdown. Join us again next week for more political news and analysis at 11 a.m. on Friday. Remember to like us on Facebook at The Breakdown KUJH and follow our tweets at Breakdown KUJH. Also tune in 10 a.m. every day right here on KUJH for Good Morning KU and at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays for the Jayhawk Sports Report. I'm Eric Pauls. See you next week right here when we break down the nation's big issues.